Hi, I'm Chris, and today I wanted to talk to you for a brief moment about what the difference really is between being an honors student or even an AP student, IB caliber student, and a student who takes regular classes, and then what it also means as far as the difference between earning A's in those kinds of classes versus earning B's, C's, or D's or F's. So a lot of times students will say, oh, I don't have any homework tonight, or I don't have any history homework, or I don't have any biology homework, or we just had a math test today, so I don't have any math homework. And that's one of those comments that really sparks this discussion with students. A lot of times I'm tutoring a student, and especially when it's a study skills and organizational kind of tutoring, we go through weekly assignments and we try to plan out the week and take a look at about how much time should be dedicated to each subject on each day. And those kinds of comments oftentimes are comments that cause me to say, okay, well, just because you haven't been given a specific assignment that says do these problems on this page, that doesn't mean that you don't have work to do for a particular class. And I think that's really one of those big difference makers, and that's oftentimes something that really sets the bar for where an honor student really performs compared to a student who's not an honor student, or where an A student performs compared to a student who earns B's or maybe C's in that same class. It's not always a difference in intelligence or even in attentiveness to academics, and someone who wants to do well sometimes just doesn't realize what that small difference really means in terms of the grade you end up receiving in a class. So a couple subject areas that are really important to make sure we understand the importance of reading regularly. Any history class or social studies class that you take, you should be reading regularly. That means that if you're currently working on chapter 10, you should be spending somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes a night reading information from that chapter, regardless of whether or not you're given a specific assignment by your teacher. That's one of those little things that you can do to really make the difference between earning an A in a class like that and earning a B or a C, or having the opportunity to prepare yourself to be in an honors level class versus a regular class, or an AP level class for that matter. So regular reading is important in social studies classes, also science classes, particularly the non-calculation based sciences like biology, where it's more conceptual, and to understand those concepts, and sometimes even just to get exposed to some of the language and the new terminology, you really need to be reading very regularly so that when you then go over the actual concepts in class, you're already familiar with the wording of things, and you can then go right to learning and actually improve your understanding of the concepts in class while the teacher is offering an explanation, as opposed to being introduced to it for the very first time at that point. Another thing that I wanted to point out that sometimes makes that difference between the A and the B, in some of the calculation-based classes like math or some of the sciences, sometimes chemistry has those chapters that have a lot of calculations, sometimes physics certainly has a lot of calculations involved. When you are given an assignment, you're certainly allowed to do more problems than what the assignment dictates, and you can gauge that on your own. If you're learning a new concept in a math class and the assignment that you have for homework that night is to do 50 problems of a very similar type, well then that's probably sufficient for reinforcing the approach to that problem and how to do that. But if you're given a relatively short assignment in a math class, let's say you're given maybe 5 or 6 problems to do, sometimes in the higher maths, 5 or 6 problems, if you're in an AP calculus course, 5 or 6 problems might mean that it's 5 or 6 pages worth of calculations, and that's certainly enough work for one evening. But when you're in maths like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and you're just getting introduced to some new concepts, if you only have 5 or 6 problems to work on as part of your assignment, or maybe a review packet that has 5 or 6, 7, 8, anything I would say fewer than 20 questions to reinforce a concept is probably not going to be enough to really solidify it in your mind. So if you have fewer than 20 questions for your homework assignment, feel free to see if you can find a little bit of time, and it doesn't take a ton of time, especially once you've done a few problems and you kind of get in that groove. Try to do over 20. Once you get around that 30 mark, that's really where those concepts tend to stick, and that's where you're going to actually remember everything about that problem type so that when you see it on the test, you're more prepared to do well then. Believe it or not, spending a little bit of extra time with the regular reading and with a few extra math problems a night to make sure that that information sticks, overall, it'll actually reduce your study time significantly when it comes time for the test, and you'll see that your overall performance is improved as well. For more, please feel free to watch our other videos, and thanks for watching.